My smoked chicken thighs used to be an absolute disaster. I'm talking rubber bouncy ball skin and meat so dry it squeaked when you bit into it. For the longest time, I convinced myself that I had this whole smoking thing down pat, but every single batch was a disaster. Then something clicked. I figured out what I had been doing wrong this whole time. And now my chicken thighs actually taste like something that you want to eat. The skin gets that perfect crispy snap and the meat stays so juicy. Look, I'm not going to promise you some revolutionary secret technique, but I am going to show you a solid cooking method that works. It doesn't matter if you're cooking for your family on a Tuesday night or trying to impress your in-laws at that weekend barbecue. If you've been struggling with smoked chicken thighs, stick around. This video is for you. Most people think smoking chicken thighs is straightforward. Throw them on the smoker and let them cook. But that's exactly where everything falls apart. And I'm talking about the plan, not the chicken. When you overcook them, don't season them right, or ignore how the fat renders, you end up with dry meat and skin that feels like chewing on a rubber band. If you ever pull chicken off your smoker feeling completely let down by the results, these mistakes are why. And I have done them all, and I bet you've done at least one of these. First, most people don't dry their chicken before seasoning it, which traps all the moisture under the skin and keeps it from getting crispy. Second, they skip seasoning under the skin. So while the outside might taste good, the actual meat ends up completely bland. And third, they crank up the heat from the start. Smoking at too high a temperature doesn't give the fat time to render and leaves you with that awful rubber skin that nobody wants to eat. Coming up, I'm going to show you how to fix each one of these problems, like how to get the skin completely dry, how to season the chicken the right way, and how to control your smoker's temperature. Now that you know what not to do, let's talk about what you should be doing. The real secret to incredible smoked chicken thighs starts way before they ever hit the smoker. It all comes down to how you prep them. And I'm about to show you the exact process that makes all the difference. The way you actually prep your chicken can still make or break everything. See, using the right cut of meat and preparing it properly is what separates okay smoked chicken thighs from the kind that make people ask for your recipe. When you use bone-in, skin-on dark meat and season it the right way, every bite comes out tender, juicy, and packed with flavor. For today's cook, I'm using chicken leg quarters because they're dirt cheap, flavorful, and pretty much impossible to mess up. I picked up a 10-pound bag for like $6. That's an incredible deal, right? Okay, there are 4 key things that make a big difference. First, you can brine these to lock in the moisture, and I totally recommend doing a brine, but it's totally up to you if you want to do it or not. Second, you have to pat them completely dry if you want crispy skin later. Third, this is huge. You need to season under the skin so that the actual meat is flavorful, not just the surface. And fourth, keep all that fat intact. Here's exactly how we're going to do this step by step. Break the leg quarters down into thighs and drumsticks so everything cooks evenly. All you got to do is look for the joint or the natural bend between the drumstick and the thigh. Then you're going to take a sharp knife and cut through the joint, separating the 2 parts. This whole prep process takes about 5 minutes, and if you decide to brine, soak your chicken for anywhere from 2 to 5 hours in a simple salt water mixture. I typically do an overnight brine. All you gotta do is mix probably about half a gallon of water, a fourth a cup of kosher salt, and a handful of brown sugar, plus whatever spices you love, like garlic, bay leaves, rosemary, thyme, or peppercorns. I like to use some Italian seasoning. You can also skip the salt, brown sugar, and the spices and instead throw in some of your favorite barbecue rub. When that's done, remove the chicken and pat it dry with some paper towels, getting every bit of moisture off there. This is usually when I clean up any of the thighs that have some loose hanging skin, fat, or meat. I'm just trying to make them look kind of pretty. Next, pull back the skin and apply salt and pepper directly onto the meat underneath, seasoning the actual meat, not just the surface. Then we're going to season the top of the skin. And for this, I use a quick rub that works perfectly, and it works over that salt and pepper base that you have. I mix together 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon each of garlic powder and onion powder, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and if you got it, half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Just mix it all together and sprinkle it generously all over the skin. That brown sugar is going to help with caramelization and balance out the heat from the cayenne, while the paprika gives you that classic barbecue color and smoky flavor that makes chicken thighs look as good as they taste. Once you finish this prep, your chicken isn't just seasoned, it's completely primed for perfect texture and flavor. And you'll be able to replicate this exact process on any smoker you've got, and your smoked chicken thighs will come out tender, juicy, and absolutely loaded with flavor. Even when you've got perfectly prepped chicken, this is where most people completely blow it, the actual smoking process. They think that they can just set it and forget it, but that's how you end up with skin that's rubbery and fat that never renders, which is crazy because there isn't a lot of fat in chicken. Anyways, so many backyard cooks nail the prep and they get crushed during the smoking process because they don't understand how to control temperature and how to control time. The smoking strategy that works every time comes down to three key things that you can't skip. First, you start low and slow to get that smoke penetration deep into the meat. Second, track the internal temperature like a hawk to make sure you're keeping everything juicy. And third, this is a game changer. You finish at a higher heat to render all that fat and get that skin crispy. When you nail this method, your chicken thighs come out smoky, flavorful, and with that crispy skin that makes people think that you're some kind of barbecue genius. Here's exactly how I execute this on my Z-Grills pellet smoker, and I'll tell you why this setup makes such a difference. First, I set the smoker to 225 degrees to start. Letting that smoke slowly work its way into the meat. I use cherry wood because it gives you a subtle, sweet smoke flavor that doesn't overpower the chicken. Next, I place the thighs on the grate and then insert the meat probe into the thickest part of the thigh, keeping a close eye on that internal temperature. You want it to hit right around 165 degrees during the low smoke phase. Once that smoke flavor is locked in and the chicken hits that target temperature, here's what you need to do next. Crank the smoker up to 400 degrees. Now, this is the high heat stage, and it is what renders all that fat that's under the skin, and it gets it beautifully crispy. Now, the reason I love this Z-Grills 700 2C 2E pellet smoker is because of the PID temperature control. It has built-in meat probes, a massive 28-pound hopper, and a solid Wi-Fi app. I use all of these to keep track of my cook without being glued to the grill. Even if you're using an offset or a drum smoker, the same approach works. It is just more complicated. You have to manage your airflow and temperature manually to get that same low and slow followed by a high heat finish. So what I really appreciate about this pellet smoker setup is the speed and consistency. It takes about 20 minutes to get up to 225 degrees Fahrenheit, then another 20 minutes to jump from 225 to 400. And with the PID controller, it stays at those temperatures. There are no flare-ups or temperature spikes. Now, if you're wondering how you can get your hands on multiple grills, like this one right here, without breaking the bank, I'll show you an incredible program at the end of this video that could change everything. The problem with charcoal smokers is it's really hard to get those same temperature adjustments in the same amount of time. And look, I'm a charcoal smoker fan. I got one right there. I love the taste that you get from them. They're great, but they don't give you the level of control and speed that a pellet smoker does. When you control the smoke and the temperature this way, your smoked chicken thighs will come off the smoker perfect. No more rubbery skin that nobody wants to eat. No more dry meat that tastes like cardboard. Just flavorful restaurant quality chicken that'll have your neighbors asking what time dinner is. So now your chicken thighs are cooked and you've got this amazing smoky flavor locked in. But here's the thing. Without some kind of finishing touch, even perfectly smoked chicken thighs can taste a little one-dimensional. Not everyone wants to add an extra step at the end, but adding a glaze is what takes your smoked chicken thighs from something that's good to something people will be talking about for weeks. When finishing with a glaze, think of it this way. You're adding a flavorful layer that doesn't compete with your smoke, but complements it and makes it better. Let's cover 4 key things here. First, a simple glaze option that adds the perfect balance of sweet and tangy. Second, how to apply the glaze without destroying all of that crispy skin that you just worked so hard to get. Third, adjustments that you need to make when you're using a pellet smoker, drum smoker, or offset smoker. And fourth, tweaks for different thigh sizes because not all chicken is created equal. And you want everything to finish at the same time. Here's exactly how I finish my chicken and this glaze recipe that has never let me down yet. I mix up a thin glaze using ketchup, molasses, brown sugar, apple cider vinegar, and a splash of hot sauce. And I sprinkle in some of the same barbecue rub I used earlier to tie everything together. Once your chicken hits that final internal temperature, 185 degrees, you're going to brush each thigh with that glaze. Then return those glazed thighs to the smoker for 5, maybe 10 minutes to let that glaze thicken up and really stick to the skin of that chicken. If you're using an offset or drum smoker, make sure you're maintaining that high heat at the end so that the skin stays crispy. And here's something important. Adjust your cook time slightly based on thigh size. Larger thighs might need a few extra minutes. Smaller ones need a little less time, but here's the pro tip that'll save you from disaster. Always, and I mean always, apply your glaze at the very end, never during that low and slow smoke phase. If you put sugary glazes on too early, they'll burn way before your meat is done, and you'll end up with bitter charred chicken. When you follow this finishing step, your smoked chicken thighs won't just be juicy and tender, they'll have a beautiful, sticky, flavorful glaze that actually highlights all the smoky goodness you build up underneath. Every single bite hits all the right notes. Crispy skin, juicy meat, and layers of flavor. They all work together instead of fighting each other. It's an awesome bite. And there you have it. Perfectly smoked chicken thighs. They're juicy, tender, have a crispy skin, and deep smoky flavor, and a glaze that ties everything together. Now, everything we walked through today, from prep work and seasoning under the skin, to that low and slow smoke, followed by the high heat finish, and the glaze, is going to guarantee that you never deal with dry or rubbery chicken again. But here's something I didn't mention at the beginning of this video. This backyard barbecue thing becomes so much easier and more consistent when you've got the right equipment to back you up. Right now, Z-Grills has an awesome program that's directly connected to the grill I've been using throughout the cook. When you buy one grill, you get 10 more grills over the next 50 years. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm completely serious about this. All you have to do is click on this video right here to see exactly how this program works and how it could transform your backyard barbecue setup. Trust me, you're gonna want to see this. I'll see you there.